Mr. Boris Bilovitsky, who has a strong background both in TradFi before joining the crypto blockchain space, and also in the blockchain space directly. Boris, whom I have known for some time and therefore have a lot of confidence in his abilities and his dedication and commitment to this position, was a founding partner of the big and important infrastructure company Copper. He has also been the chief commercial officer of Copper for a number of years, leading their commercial development of the Copper organization. As some of you will recognize, Copper has been a partner of ours for a considerable period of time. And Copper is one of the leading companies in the crypto industry when it comes to custody, settlement, clearing of digital assets, a significant infrastructure company in the whole sort of clearing of this complicated space. It has been very successful, achieved solid founding at significant valuations, and Boris has been a crucial and essential part of the leadership at Copper. As I said, as a founding partner and a chief commercial officer. So Boris is very focused on the commercial development of projects. He's very entrepreneurial in his approach. He's very dedicated, very hardworking, and he also has a very strong network to both the buy and the sell side across the entire industry. His reasons for joining Concordium is that he has been a long-standing supporter of Concordium. He shares our core belief that ID, compliance, etc., will drive the real serious adoption of this type of technology, blockchain DLT technology, but also has a strong view that you need to look at the entire spectrum of what's happening in the space, which means, of course, the corporate industrial scale use cases that we have had as a key focus area, and Boris believes should continue to be so, but also expanding that to the rest of the spectrum, which means more crypto native use cases, some of the people that are actually driving other parts of this industry at the moment. So I am very pleased to welcome Boris to this new role at Concordium. I have a lot of confidence in that he will take this organization forward in a good way. I look forward to cooperating and collaborating with Boris from the board, and will look forward also to return to a more withdrawn chairman role while Boris takes control of the day-to-day management of Concordium going forward. With his commercial focus, with his deep understanding of the technology and the infrastructure, and with his large network, I do believe he is the best choice that we could find, and I very much look forward to him introducing himself more directly to you, the community, and of course to the whole organization. As I said at the outset, he will start on the 1st of September. So that was an announcement of some significance that I would like to start with. You might ask, you know, we're also looking for a CTO. That process is also ongoing. And of course, Boris will now also be part of those conversations because that is only natural when he is to take over the leadership in the near future. But we also have a number of great candidates there, and I'm absolutely sure that we will end up aligning on deciding the right candidate there as well. But for now, at least something that we have all wanted for a while, but we wanted to make sure that we got it right, has been resolved by appointing Boris Bilovitsky new CEO of Concordium, and I hope you will all welcome him and and look forward to interacting with him as well in the future. So with that said, let's go to the AMA, and let's start with the first question. Will the team at any point address the current situation we're in? Is the goal just to be a small sub 50 million market cap layer one? I think it's a bit of a flippant question, to be honest. I mean, what do you think? Of course, we're trying to build a serious project here, and I think we have proven that through, having some of the best science in the industry, having a really well-functioning blockchain that scores very well on a whole range of parameters, having substantial numbers of transactions, having a number of very serious corporates engaging with us. So of course we're trying to build an important project here. I think there's two things to a project. There's what is the actual value of a project? What are the components or the characteristics of a project? What is the solidity of it? And then there's how is that perceived by the outside world, and how is it perceived and valued by the market? And those things can deviate for a period of time. I don't believe in the infinite future. I think these things come together. But of course we have ambitions to be a very serious project in this industry, and I actually believe we are already. So no, it is not a deliberate strategy to have a low valuation. I think it does have some benefits because it actually allows to incentivize people and for people to get in at a good point here if they decide to join the project. But of course we have big plans for this project, and I also personally have a very strong conviction that eventually markets work out what is valuable, what is not, and I think that'll also be the case here. That being said, I'm not in the business of giving any predictions for valuations, etc. I can look at what various projects actually can deliver and what they're valued at. I do believe that there's some discrepancies between how we are valued compared to many other projects, and my bottom line belief is you keep building a great project and eventually the market will recognize you for what that project is, and I expect that to play out here as well. Next question, please. When will the team have an honest conversation with the community about how they will move forward? Again, I think I disagree a little bit with the premise here. I actually do believe that we have very continuous interactions with the community. This is just an example where, apart from having had a month without an AMA, then this is going on regularly, month on month, and will continue to do so with various departments in the organizations. We have had marketing, we've had product, we've had commercial, we have myself, we have various AMAs with new projects, etc. So I actually believe that there's quite a lot of opportunities for the community to engage with us, and I have to say, please do. I mean, please take these opportunities and these many different initiatives where we do engage with you, and direct any good ideas you may have or any questions you have to the various departments, just as you are to me here now. But I do believe that we actually do take into account what the community has of views on this. I do believe that we give ample opportunity to communicate that, both through AMAs, through the various channels, many channels that we operate in, and I think a number of the decisions we make are actually influenced by what people around us have in terms of input. I just would recommend that you do that inside those fora that we make available, and that you are as constructive as possible, because we want to hear constructive ideas. Where, if you just sort of can tell us, yes, we love you to spend millions on marketing, sure. I mean, that's evident, but we are also a project that are where we are, and we will do what we can inside the resources we have. But any kind of constructive communication that actually is valuable and not just self-evident points, I think we welcome very much, or I know that we welcome them very much. Just direct them to the fora that we continuously make available for you. Next question, please. How does Concordium look at how things went in H1? Decentralization was a big buzzword, but honestly the least of my worries now. Do you feel like the pain points and hurdles that have led to announce H1 strategy are now being tackled? Yes, I do believe that we are tackling a number of points, and I don't agree that decentralization is not a big worry like the person posing the question apparently seems to think. Decentralization is key to where we are in this process at the moment. It is key that we get people around us to contribute. And I actually think there are very good examples of that happening. I think marketing can release some additional information around this, but currently we have shifted from a lot of content being internally generated to the majority of content now being externally generated and being quite visible across many channels. And I think that is a success of decentralization. I think it's a success of the ambassador program that I believe more than 80% of content now are decentralized generated. So that is one example. We have also worked, put a lot of effort into attracting more developer community, more people that can participate in building on Concordium, of course, in attracting use cases, etc. And all of that decentralization is pretty important. We just had last month we had the first election to the governance committee where we also added members of the community, so that's another example of decentralization. The new campaign we're running with Giga is directed at attracting more developers and use cases to build on Concordium and highlighting how we put available certain tools to operate with, but where you can take charge of your own destiny and your own project based on our support of a decentralized environment. So yes, I actually do believe that we are tackling the centralization and increasing decentralization, which was and is the first and foremost goal of the strategy change we announced about half a year ago. So I believe that a lot is happening to achieve those objectives, and actually that is happening quite successfully. Next question, please. Who's currently on the team? Can we finally expect a full-time and devoted CEO? What about the CTO? I believe I've already answered those questions. As I said, Boris Bilovitsky is joining us on the 1st September as new CEO, and the CTO process is quite progressed and will also result in an announcement and an appointment there before too long. Next question, please. Where's the ship sailing to? What about H2? What was delivered in H1 on the product roadmap? Why weren't partnerships or huge milestones actively communicated? I think, again, please do make use of the communication channels that we do make available. For example, on the product roadmap, there's a very recently updated version available on the website. It's fully detailed what we achieved. It's detailed as to what we have as targets for H2. And I think giving a very good overview of the product development and the things we're thinking there, both in terms of deliverables and future products for the near and somewhat longer future. So I strongly encourage you to actually go to the website, look at these various places where we do communicate these things at much more detail and extent than I could do here. So please make use of those communication channels where we actually try to make sure that you are as updated as you reasonably can be. Again, partnerships, I mentioned that many times, when we're dealing with corporates, we are at some dependency on how these corporates want to communicate. It is not for us to go to top company and tell them how to communicate. It is them running those agendas, and they may not have the same interest in a very public announcement as we as a blockchain like to tell about our successes. I think I've gone through that on many occasions, but repeating it again here. So I think there is a difference between what we perhaps would like to be able to communicate in some cases and what we actually are able to communicate for that reason. So I think we are communicating quite frequently, quite adequately about what we have to communicate and what we can communicate, and then some other stuff is going on that's not always as easy to communicate around as typical sort of crypto-native use cases where there's a shared interest in just getting as much visibility as possible. But if you go and look at the actual numbers of social media posts and press releases and community-generated content out there, you will see that there is actually quite a lot of communication going on. And rest assured that if there is a important partnership and we don't communicate it very aggressively, there's a good reason for it. Of course, we would love to maximize the awareness around anything interesting. So, be a little realistic about what can be done and how other people's views on communication has to be taken into account in many cases. In fact, in all cases should be taken into account and can deviate from the way that we might prefer as a community to distribute that information. Next question, please. While other blockchains and even protocols manage to get noticed by governments, I wonder where Concordium is now, and that there's clearly momentum for more regulatory compliance. Have you finally applied for a W3C membership? Yes, I agree that there is an increasing awareness among governments and public sector institutions about the value of blockchain, and that's a good thing because, as I've said many times, for years, in fact, blockchain should actually be a regulator's way to stream because it does give you an audit trail which is very accurate and is in many ways much more transparent than the systems that we have in the old world to track various transactions, etc. So I think this is an ongoing learning process, but I think it is coming across to a number of also public sector entities that audit trails, protection of ID, controlling GDPR compliance and similar initiatives around the world. All of this lends itself very well to blockchain. Also the new challenges coming from the AI agents that are beginning to roam the world with sometimes recognizable senders and sometimes without that or even deliberately misleading. So I think there is a beginning of realization there, but we are by far not at the point where I think we will end up in terms of the public sector actually benefiting from these initiatives. We are involved in various things here. I think we mentioned before the EU AI Pact, where we're trying to, as one of the participating members there, we're trying to give our input as to how blockchain could be used there. We have regular calls with representatives of the EU Commission. We are in the Danish regulator sandbox for this. So yes, we are, I think, trying to make our voices heard in those environments. I think in reality, there's probably less active initiatives out there than it might seem, but from governmental side. But we're certainly trying to stay on the radar there because we believe that we do have something to offer there, and I think that the whole direction that EID, electronic ID from governments, etc., is taking, there's an obvious connection to blockchain, which we are clearly trying to pursue across multiple jurisdictions at the moment. So we are making our voice heard. We are trying to stay on the radar and come on the radar for people that have those needs, and I believe that we also have something valuable to offer in those various contexts. Next question, please. Oh, sorry, I missed the membership. I don't believe we have, but I will. I'll look into that and see if that is something we are or should be pursuing. But as I said, for example, the EU AI Pact, which I think is very important initiative, we are part of. Next question, please. What is the big hurdle to actually provide liquidity, a functioning market for CCD? Well, I mean, at the end of the day, a market, and I agree that liquidity is very important, and we are doing various things to improve liquidity and interest in the CCD token. Access is important. How many exchanges are you on? We have announced a couple of new exchanges recently. There will be a couple more to come before too long, as far as I'm aware. We have various on-ramps where you can get access to CCD, and the whole access question is, of course, important. On the various exchanges, we have market makers providing a limited amount of liquidity so that people can execute trades. But at the end of the day, liquidity is, of course, driven by underlying buyers and sellers, and that is really a question of people feeling interested, inspired enough to participate in that market. That is about awareness. That is about generating interest and enthusiasm around the project, and that is really the only way to solve liquidity in a big way, right? We can't ask a market maker to go out and make huge amounts of liquidity available, because that's not what a market maker does. A market maker facilitates that there's some liquidity available for modest-sized trades, and we have that service as is. So it's a combination, as I say, of access, of numbers of exchanges, but certainly first and foremost about people being interested in this. We've had some overhang on the sell side for a while, which is also, say, the predominant reason the price is going down. I think it looks currently as if that overhang is a bit smaller than it has been in the past, and that's good. And of course, we'll continue to see how we can find where we can affect it, try to find the best balance between buyers and sellers, which in particular, of course, means attracting a new set of interested parties that are on the buy side, and hopefully see any selling overhang being reduced or accommodated in ways that are not damaging to price formation. But at the end of the day, as I started out by saying in one of the first questions, there can be long periods where there's discrepancy between what is a project and what is the valuation of that project and the perception of that project externally. In the long run, they tend to align, but there's always exceptions, but they do tend to align, and I believe that's the case here as well. But one of the ways is, of course, that you, as many people in the ambassador program, etc., is already doing, is that you help share the awareness and the positive perception around Concordium and all the good things we do, because at the end of the day, that is the ultimate solution to liquidity, is that more people engage, more people are interested in the token and in the project, and we all play a role for that. Next question, please. Doesn't it make Concordium angry to be at place 846 at CoinGecko? Why is price irrelevant considering we reach all-time low after all-time low? I don't think you can spend your time being angry at the market or at people. You can, as I said earlier, you can wonder maybe why they evaluate certain things with very little substance very highly and other things with a lot of substance less highly. But at the end of the day, the market sets its own parameters, and it can also be that people see a perceived short-term value in something, even though they know it doesn't have long-term value, which is what you typically see in a meme coin, where you have the pumps and dumps, right? I think at the end of the day, it's about building the right project. It's about having the right products. It's about having something that works, something that is scientifically and technologically sound, and get people to use it. At the end of the day, my suspicion is that the market will evaluate all projects on that basis, and I actually think at some point in time we will get more maturity into this market, which means that those parameters will be more important than perhaps they are today, and the sort of willingness to run after any kind of harebrained scheme for like short-term FOMO reasons and hype reasons will probably be less important, but it takes time for a market to mature. So I wouldn't say it makes me angry. It makes me wonder, what are people thinking when they look at the quality of the project? It also means, of course, that if you move up or down a couple of fractions of a cent, you can move hundreds of places. So I don't pay too much attention to it. But at the end of the day, you can wonder when you look at some of the 845 above, you can wonder a lot why they would be above. It's about building a great project and getting people to understand and recognize that over time. Next question, please. In the last AMA, Lars touched upon the runway upon funds available and monthly expenses. Can we please get an update? There's a number of questions around that. The project is adequately funded for the foreseeable future. It will continue, of course, and that is one of the things we're also going to discuss at length with Boris and his connection to increase that funding base. But at this point in time, we are adequately funded, and I'm comfortable with our funding position, and I'm not going to go into more detail around it, but if I felt otherwise, I would let you know. But of course, it is a continuous objective to broaden that foundation for the project for the long term, but at the moment, this is not one of my concerns, so it shouldn't be one of yours either. Next question, please. At the last AMA, VC investments were not considered because of pricing levels. That's still the position now that funds are drying up, even with much lower pricing. Well, as I said, no, I don't think it's an attractive level to raise VC investments, and funds are not drying up, so that's a wrong assumption. We are adequately funded for the foreseeable future. If that changes, I will be sure to let you know. But no, it's not a particularly attractive place to take in VC funding, so it would be much preferable to see an increase in pricing prior to going out doing significant funding. And of course, these are parts of the long-term consideration for the project. It's also something where Boris and actually another gentleman that joins with him that we will talk about later that have significant experience in fundraising. That is an important point, but for now, it's not something that is of short-term concern. Next question, please. The marketing team stated they don't want to issue communication comparing themselves with other blockchains. Would you reconsider this stance, as there are plenty of ways to respectfully show CCD's uniqueness by just stating facts? I think, they might look good, all these sort of lineups of comparisons with, ticks and crosses, but the fact is that generally when they are internally produced, it is extraordinarily easy to produce something where you look very good and everybody else looks the opposite, right? It also, at least for the trained eye, because of that, has very little credibility, because if you go and choose the stuff where you feel that you compare well and reversely choose things where others compare poorly, it doesn't build a lot of credibility. I think, on the other hand, when people do that externally, and I think there are examples of various sites that are showing, for example, numbers of transactions where I believe we're in the top 20 of the blockchains tracked by that particular site. The name escapes me right now, but should be easy to find. I think that's much more credible when people externally make those comparisons. And I fully agree. We compare extremely well on many points. We compare very well on finality time. We can compare very well on throughput. We compare very well on uptime. We compare very well on a large number of various parameters. But I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword if you yourself are making these comparisons. So I think it's really a question of letting other people do these comparisons, and then help distribute those findings, because that is much more trustworthy than you picking and choosing certain aspects that you feel you compare well on. That being said, I'm not saying we should never do it when it's an honest and truthful representation, but it is much preferable that other people do that, and much more trustworthy. But I absolutely agree that we are comparing very, very well on very many different characteristics and factors. Next question, please. May I ask to structure the reflection on H1's achievements based on the strategy shared earlier this year? Well, I think we touched upon some of those things. We are seeing much more external content. We are seeing a growth in the developer community. We are seeing quite a number of people applying for grants and getting involved in what we do. But I do also agree that perhaps communication around this is not absolutely in all cases as easy to see through as possible, because again, we could perhaps communicate more clearly about who is building, what is the stage of grant applications, etc. So happy to take that into consideration. But I think by and large, the strategy we set out, I think we are moving in the right direction on the parameters that we set out there. I have described some of them. One of the other parameters, of course, finding the CEO, which we have now also achieved. So pretty comfortable with where we are heading and how we are living up to the goals that we set out. I actually think that we generally pretty much hit our targets. Although, of course, and that you have to do in a fast evolving industry, sometimes you change your goals because you see a different development out there than perhaps what you assumed 6 or 12 or 18 months earlier. And I think if you can't pivot certain aspects on an ongoing basis, you are going in the wrong sort of side of erring, of caution. So, I mean, we also don't want 5 or 7 year plans that are set in stone when the world moves in completely different directions. Some countries have had very poor experiences with that. So it's a balance between having a relatively fluid and flexible approach to it, but also, of course, having goals that are measurable and possible to hit. Next question, please. And I would add to the former, please do check carefully what's on the website, because I do believe we're describing a lot of things in quite a lot of detail there. And I think some of these questions, in some cases, seem to indicate that people are not actually looking in depth at what we are publishing, and that might actually answer a lot of their questions, because I do believe that we are pretty detailed in what we communicate. The unique proposition of Concordium starts with the ID built into the L1 blockchain. It seems to me that while the team initially focused fully on ID, we moved to ESG, and now it's all about AI. Any reasonable explanation what we would win in this area? I don't actually agree. I mean, we did a lot of work on ID in the past first half here, on verifiable credentials, on Web3 ID. So ID is still core to this, and I think the vision we had many years ago are spot on, because everybody else is now beginning to realize this years later on. So I do believe that we're firmly staying the course on that particular focus. The interesting thing, of course, is that because this is now being recognized by more and more industries and more players, it opens various opportunities inside How do I actually know who is issuing my carbon credits? How do I know that there's credibility behind it? How do I know that this or that AI agent is in fact representing who it claims to represent? So it's more about us deploying the ID thinking to a number of various industries and use cases where it comes down very, very hand in glove fitting to those industries. I don't know if would we win in this area if this is about AI. I mean, clearly AI is an ESG for that matter, are huge industries, so nobody's going to win that area. It's going to be multiple participants in there. I recently saw a report that said that the area of just ID and verifying authenticity will be a 260 billion industry in 2028, which is not very far from here. So clearly that's not going to be handled by one or two companies. It's about finding a role for Concordium in that, and I actually think that we are still pretty much ahead in terms of the combination of being able to verify with certainty the ID of somebody that's a given content provider or a given agent provider, whilst combining that with the ability to keep that information private where you want to keep it private, respecting GDPR, etc. I actually think we are in a good place there. So I think it's very natural that we explore certain areas where this is particularly relevant, and AI is certainly one of them. ESG is another one. Real world assets is the third one. I mean, basically, the fact that it's absolutely necessary to know what you're dealing with when you have important transactions of economic value going on, I think is becoming evident across many industries, and actually we can be happy that we identified the direct link between blockchain and ID at a very early point compared to most other people. It's the fact that we have won the game, and the vision has won the day, I would rather say, and other people are going into that. I think is a much better verification that our vision was right than if we had focused on something completely differently and were standing alone with it, right? So I think our vision is being confirmed and endorsed by many other users, and I think that's good. Next question, please. In Japan, we heard there are less than 100 approved coins tokens. Does Concordium work towards getting CCD on that list? If so, what is the timeline? Yes, there is in Japan a rather specific approach to this. In order to get listed on certain exchanges, you have to be on this sort of generally recognized list. And last time I was in Japan, I did meet with a couple of exchanges discussing this issue and how you could meet those requirements. I think it's still ongoing conversations. The question is, how important is it? How important are those Japanese exchanges in terms of volumes, etc. today? And I can't give you a firmer answer to that than it is correct that there is this need in order to be listed on a Japanese exchange. There's this need to be on let's say, a white list from the Japanese regulator. I have also participated in conversations about it, but I'm a little unsure on where we stand on that right now and what the actual prioritization is of that. But it's correct that is the approach in Japan. Next question, please. We have heard that Concordium offers white label solutions in the following areas: real world asset, track and trace, GDPR compliant environment for sharing medical records. Can you elaborate on why these areas were selected and what we can expect from these solutions? I would say these are sort of toolings that we are developing in certain areas where we have seen particular demand, or where work that we've done for one use case lends itself to being replicable across other similar type of projects. So I think it's quite natural that we try to build certain tools that makes it a little bit easier to choose us. Another one is I believe we have We have an NFT type infrastructure as well. So basically these are tools that makes it easier for you to build a specific use case on Concordium. And they have, of course, been selected from a variety of what do we think are really important areas and where do we actually see demand. And I think particularly real-world assets is something that's going through the roof in terms of attention at the moment. Not that many specific big-ticket applications just yet, but everybody's beginning to see that in terms of settlement, finality, custody, etc., transparency of processes, the blockchain has a lot to offer. So yes, we have built some various tools there to make it easier to choose Concordium for your particular effort in some of these areas that you mentioned here, and where we think that we are particularly relevant, obviously in many cases because of the ID, but also the possibility of combining that with privacy, which is, for example, very important with medical records, right? So yes, that's the reason. We see demand, and we think that they are particularly suited for Concordium, and we may add other tools to that going forward, depending on demand and suitability. Next question, please. In addition to the previous question, what about other areas like ESG? I also recall hearing about white label wallet solution. Yes, that is correct. We also have a platform that is directed, a tool that helps people build platforms around ESG. So that is correct. That is another area that we have, I think, a very popular tool. Actually, we have several use cases that see this as a big advantage. In terms of the white label wallet solution, we have perhaps taken a slightly different angle there, that we have developed an SDK that makes it quite easy to build a Concordium integratable wallet. So there's a wallet SDK that is quite detailed to help you build your own wallet should you so desire. So both relevant, not discontinued. Next question, please. I know you can't mention names, but can you quantify how many large companies are actively building on Concordium, maybe categorized into Forbes 50, 100, 250, 500? I think just the fact that we actually do have a couple of use cases that are into those top categories in itself is something that many blockchains would envy. So I haven't sat and sort of defined exactly which categories they fall into, but we have a handful of very, very serious corporates building on us and a number of other people looking into it. And I think that in itself is a very strong endorsement of the fact that we have built a product that appeals to also very large corporates that obviously have completely different expectations in terms of the science, the stability, the solidity, the functionality, and privacy and ID aspects of a blockchain. So we're probably into a good handful building actively, and another couple of handfuls looking, maybe a bit more. But again, these also fall into the category where it is not always us deciding on when to announce and how much to announce, which I see you recognize in your question also. But some of this stuff is stuff that we can only release whenever that particular corporate is willing to do so, and in some cases maybe not at all if they just want a solid blockchain to build on. So these are lengthy processes, so it takes a while for them to come to a live point, much longer than sort of the average crypto native use case, but it's also very interesting learning because it obviously teaches us things around what is it that these big corporate industrial use cases are really looking for, and at the end of the day, what is going to drive this space in the long run is is big corporates adopting this as a natural part of their business, as they did with the internet back in the day. There will be new use cases for sure, and new projects and new business models that couldn't have been done without blockchain, just as there has been with internet. Some of the most successful businesses there are things that didn't exist prior to the internet because they're totally dependent on it, and we will see the same in blockchain. But of course also the fact that the world as is adopting blockchain is very critical to sort of mainstream adoption across a multiple of industries, and we, as we always have positioned ourselves as well as we could for that development. With the appointment of Boris now, I also mentioned that one of Boris's objectives would be to widen that scope out with some more focus on an additional strategy for more crypto-native use cases. I think this is a bridge you have to make at where the industry is at the moment. Next question, please. Since the integration of Danish MitID and the Finnish equivalent, it appears there has been no more push for integration of digital EIDs for onboarding. Could you elaborate on Concordium's stance on using these solutions for wallet creation? Well, first of all, it's not that many countries that actually have these solutions. Where there are solutions, we are actively looking into integrating them because it's a great way to do the IDs. It's also a cheaper way to do the IDs, so we have many reasons for it. The EU has recently made laws around the fact that by 2027, all members of the EU need these solutions, and of course, as people bring them out, we will look to integrate them because there's a lot of advantages from having those integrated. So that's absolutely a continued focus area. I know we're also looking at the Nigerian ID system at the moment for a possible integration there. So we are looking into various ways to integrate these national systems where they exist. But actually, there are many countries that don't have a sufficient national EID solutions on offer yet, like we have, for example, in Denmark and Finland and a few other European countries. But it's a big area of focus for us because it is a cost saver, and it's a very efficient way to operate. So the more countries that come out with that, the better. And of course, with our current experience in integrating these systems, the integration will probably also get easier and easier, as these systems, certainly in the EU, will look quite a lot alike because they have to correspond to the same legislation. Next question, please. Can we know more about the nature of collaboration with Muinmas, and why aren't there any mention of follow-ups in the KYC as a service aspect in the new July transparency report? There's always a prioritization what we're doing in the transparency report, I think, so it doesn't get completely overwhelming to produce and completely unmanageable to read through. So we mention what we think are important. We are looking at several providers that can help with the KYC part. We are certainly working with KYC passport for banks, where we expect to have a POC here in Q3. So a number of things going on. The exact status of Muinmas, which people I've known for a long time and very credible people. I don't know, but we're looking at a number of providers and would be happy to also work with Muinmas. But certainly this is an ongoing expansion of the Web3 ID to combine this with KYC solutions. So considerable amounts of stuff going on in that aspect with various angles and various external parties. Next question, please. The promised UI and onboarding enhancements are covered by the onboarding of Global FinReg. Also, why is there a need for enabling ID for VASP companies? Is it somehow part of a larger, more elaborate plan? Well, Global FinReg is a new provider for us, and we believe in general it's an enhancement of our ID issuing, which is of relevance for a large number of companies, also VASPs. I would say it's part of our general wish to have the right kind of ID issuers, have a selection of ID issuers, and making sure that they cover various aspects of ID that is necessary for various use cases in order for them to conduct their business. So happy to have also Global FinReg on board, and yes, we believe that they enhance the process for a number of companies, including VASPs. Next question, please. As you know, I'm still a great believer in Concordium. That's good to hear, although I don't know who you are. I hope everybody on this AMA got all the right features to play a significant role in future Web3, but good stuff takes time. Hence, for how long will you support financially the project? I believe I agree with you that we have a lot of good features and significant role to play, of course, and I believe I've already answered the other question. We are continuously looking to broaden our funding aspect, but for now we are in safe waters, and if I feel otherwise, I'll let you know. Next question, please. Your neighbor in Aarhus, Partitia blockchain, has now entered the space too. How do you consider them a competitor or more of a collaborator? I've known the people at Partitia for many years, in fact, prior to even launching Concordium, where they have been involved in various projects. So I know them, I respect them. I guess in this space, most people are both a competitor and a potential collaborator, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think we have large things planned with them currently, but with their focus on MPC in particular, which is a very complicated area, there might be some shortcuts that would be of relevance for us, and vice versa. So these are our friends and colleagues in the industry that, as I said, I've personally known the CEO of Partitia since before we launched Concordium, I think. We'll of course occasionally check up if there's things we could or should be doing together. Next question. Could you elaborate on why the roadmap is not a live document that serves as a foundation for all contributions? Will Concordium commit to establishing a fully open and transparent roadmap that ensures ongoing community and ecosystem involvement, and will this be a main responsibility of the new CEO? I think you can do things in many ways, and it depends a little bit what you're trying to achieve. If it's like here is a roadmap and that's what we delivered and that's what you can expect, well then I believe that's one type of a communication. If you want to have a very live document with everybody coming with input, etc., it's a different proposition. Currently, we're doing it in the former way. I would say we have frequent updates on what is the status of the roadmap. I believe there has been a very recent update on the website, which I would recommend you to explore. As I mentioned earlier, we could perhaps be more detailed around communicating the status of our various projects and grant applications, etc. So this is things that we are analyzing on an ongoing basis, and I think we will continue to do so with the new CEO. But for now, I'm not going to commit to any changes there, because I actually think what we have is quite adequate in terms of saying where we are on the roadmap. I think it's really just a question of accessing and following what we do publish. But of course, there's always room for improvement, and I'm quite happy to take any specific input and bring that up with the management and let them have their views on how to do it. So For now, I think the CEO, Boris, as he's coming in, will have an intense focus on commercialization, on broadening the scope of who we appeal to in this space. So that will probably be the main focus areas. But let's get him on board before we identify everything where he wants to spend his time. I actually know that Boris is a very self-driven person with a lot of views on how to do things, and it's not for me to sit here prior to his analysis, which will be ongoing, to tell him exactly where they want to focus. I actually want a self-driven, autonomous leadership and management of Concordium, and let them come up with the right solutions that they suggest inside, of course, an overall strategic input from the board, where I will continue to be chairman. Next question, please. Do Concordium sell white label versions of their blockchain for profit? I would say no. We're open source, and I know that there was a number of other questions relating to these white label versions of Concordium, but as we don't really sell them the way that a person posing the question envisaged, they became irrelevant. But of course, we're open source, and if somebody wants to collaborate with us of taking a copy of Concordium and, for example, have a different consensus, a private permission consensus system, etc., definitely something we would look at assisting if it brought overall value to the blockchain. But are we sort of running around selling the Concordium blockchain white label for profits? The answer is no. But it's open source, and we're happy to collaborate with people that want to work with our technology in any of various forms, as long as we see that as adding value to Concordium blockchain itself. Next question, please. What are the pros and cons of implementing a hard cap on cryptocurrency supply? How might this impact its value, adoption, and market stability? That's obviously a big question, and I think it depends a little bit. The reason that some have hard caps and some have not is a little bit the long-term consideration. If you have a continuous inflation of some degree, well, that obviously is a typical choice for a proof of stake because you do want to give people an incentive to do their staking. But there could be an argument for, in the long run, having a hard cap that inflation reduces to a certain point and then stops. This is what Bitcoin has, for example, right? And Bitcoin is actually now at the point where clearly the rewards that are handed out are now much, much smaller than they were in the beginning, where it was 50 Bitcoins per block, and now it's 3 and a fraction per block. The question that raises in the long run, if the reward or the inflation is so low that it's of little value to actually support the system, then the only other reason to do it would be transaction-related fees, and that is, for example, what seems to be working better for Ethereum as now proof of stake, where there actually is a substantial amount of transaction generating a substantial income for the benefit of the people that choose to support the system. Whereas in Bitcoin, you don't have quite the same situation. The vast majority of value actually comes from the reward itself. And of course, if Bitcoin is a very, very successful project, no question, and hence the reward from even a very small inflation is substantial. But in many, many cases, that is not the case, and hence that system may not work very well at all for other systems than Bitcoin, and would not work very well for Bitcoin if the value of Bitcoin, for whatever reason, should decrease significantly from here. So Bitcoin is very dependent on this continuous increase in value, which, whether you believe it's going to continue forever or not, it has proven quite resilient and continues to do so, so that the reduction in rewards gets compensated by a higher value of the rewards or the coin itself. So there are many pros and cons, but I guess they are predominantly around, on the one side, how do you incentivize people to support your system? And on the other side, if you have too big an inflation, is that devaluing to the token value in the long run? And there are a number of considerations around that. In Concordium, we have decreased inflation once. I'm sure that we will do that again and continue to do so into the future. But it's really also very much a question for the governance committee, where we would like to continuously have these conversations with the governance committee. Should we reduce inflation more aggressively? In an extreme case, should we go to a purely algorithmic future for issuing, so that people know exactly what the future inflation might be at any given point, and should there be an end to that inflation? I think these are all valid points to discuss, taking into context both sides of the coin. How do you make sure that the system is continuously supported by people that needs to be incentivized, holding that up against not wanting the inflation to be as is inflationary and then devaluing for the token value. So it's a fine balance, which I think is an ongoing conversation. Personally, I could see an environment where perhaps in the long run you had a hard cap to the issuance, but I think it's for the many good people we have on the governance committee and around us with a lot of insight into this to come up with proposals and views on this that we can subsequently make decisions on the base of. Next question, please. No more questions. Well, that also makes us hit round about an hour here, so that's what we were aiming for. As I started by saying, we combined a few questions, so it might not be your question verbatim, but I do believe that we've covered the essence of all questions asked. If not, feel free to submit again to the next AMA. And in the meantime, please continue to support the project. Please share the good news that we do come out with. Thank you to the Ambassador Program for providing more and more externally generated content. Thank you to all of you for helping share the awareness and the interest around this. And then I think, like you, I'm very much looking forward to getting Boris Bilevitsky fully on board as CEO, and to present him directly to you as a community, and for you also to hear a bit about his views on how do we take this project forward in the best possible way. But in the meantime, I'm sure we will meet again in about a month's time. So thank you very much for listening in, and continue your good work and support out there. Thank you very much.